Hello, I'm Mike Festa, the State Director for AARP Massachusetts, and I want to welcome you to this Tele Town Hall on behalf of the AARP Fraud Watch Network. This morning, we have a very special guest. We're going to be speaking with Massachusetts Attorney General Andrea Joy Campbell. She's been on the job for a little over 6 months, so we're going to check in with her and see what she's set for priorities for the office and run down the number of ways her office is working to protect you from fraud. Right now, we're connecting with thousands of AARP members across the state. A reminder that AARP is a nonprofit, nonpartisan member organization. We've been working to promote the health and well-being of older Americans for more than 60 years. Now, if you've participated in one of our Teletown halls before, you know this is very similar to a radio talk show. And you're going to have the opportunity to ask questions and get answers from our expert live. If you'd like to ask a question, it's really easy to do. You just press *3 on your telephone keypad, and you'll be connected with an AARP staff member or a volunteer who's going to note your name and the gist of your question and put you in a queue so you can ask that question or make your comment live. Again, to ask your question, you'll want to press *3, and I suggest if you have an interest in doing that, do it sooner than later. Now, with us today, as I mentioned, is Massachusetts Attorney General Andrea Joy Campbell. She is the 45th Attorney General of Massachusetts, and she's the first Black woman to serve as the state's top lawyer. The Attorney General's office is an advocate and a resource for the people of Massachusetts in many ways, including protecting consumers, combating fraud and corruption, investigating and prosecuting crimes, and protecting the environment, workers, and civil rights. So, AG General, I should say, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to speak with our members today. And let's start with an introduction, and if you'd be kind enough to give an overview to the listeners about what your office is all about and how you're helping battle fraud. So please join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, and of course, thank you to AARP for inviting me to join today, and thank you to all those who are calling in to listen and take part. I'm really proud to be here with each and every one of you to share more about the Attorney General's office. I don't do this work by myself. I do it with an incredible team, and we want to make sure that folks are informed about the work and, of course, are educated consumers. As the uptick in scams and abuse of elders seems to be on the rise, we want to make sure we're being as helpful as we can. So I'm honored to be here. When running for office, I actually promised to establish an elder justice unit. We are actively working on getting that off the ground, and we see it as a unit that will not only be a one-stop shop in many ways for our elders to be able to call and to connect with the leadership there on a whole host of issues, but it also offers us an opportunity to streamline some of the work we're doing across the office and to make sure that it's intersectional. And so I want people to know our office is here to help when it comes to almost anything and everything they could probably think of. Each week, sadly, our office does hear from individuals who have been targets of scams or attempts to steal their personal information or their money. And unfortunately, many of these schemes target older adults who may be at home and willing to pick up the phone when a scammer calls. And they also may not understand how to navigate a call if that happens. And so sometimes, of course, they are vulnerable and they are preyed on because of that. And so we're doing everything in our power to prevent these type of calls from happening in the first place and working hard to allow folks to avoid being, of course, not only susceptible to a scam, but scammed. And I want folks to know that we have a couple of hotlines that are extremely useful and will be useful to them. One is our consumer hotline, which operates on the weekdays and assists callers with a whole host of issues. And that consumer hotline is 617-727-8400. We also have an elder hotline, which is 888-243-5337 or 888-AG-ELDER. So again, I'll say that one, 888-243-5337, 888-AG-ELDER. And we think this information is critically important because for those who are on the call, of course, we hope you take down these numbers, but also we hope you share them with other elders and other friends and family members so they can avoid being scammed or anything else that may harm them. We also want to encourage, I should say, folks to maintain a healthy dose of skepticism whenever someone is asking for your money or your personal information. We know that being an educated consumer is the best defense, and we want folks to think about a few things. So here's a tried and true rule of thumb, and if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Offers of prize winnings, free tips, or free trips, I should say, or free money is often done in a very attractive way and may appear to be legitimate. But like we say, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. It's important to read the small print and to make sure that you know what you're being asked for in return. It's important to protect your personal information. Never give your personal or financial information to someone who calls you unexpectedly out of the blue, especially if you have someone calling you, moving and operating with a sense of urgency, and they want you to, for some reason, do it very quickly. That's also usually a sign that it's possibly a scam. We also want to remind folks that, remember, a legitimate organization would never ask you for your private identifying information via email. If you receive a request to give to a charity, do not pay in cash and never feel pressured to give on the spot. And again, if you feel like you're being rushed into that, it's probably best to take a moment and gather more information to determine if the request is legitimate. If you're not familiar with a charity, you can request additional information in writing. You can also, of course, check online. The AG's office has a public charities website. We do a lot in this space. And if you can't check online because you don't have access, you can call our office again to ask and inquire as to whether or not that charity is legitimate. There are also other websites like Charity Navigator or GuideStar that offer useful information as to whether or not a charity is legitimate. Another tip is to ask a fundraiser how much of your donation will actually go to the charity. They are required to tell you that. And if they are reluctant or don't tell you that, that probably is a sign as well. So if it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. So feel free, of course, in all of those instances to call our office, and we're happy to assist and provide additional information. And again, there is no need to feel pressured to respond to a professional fundraiser or even a sympathetic appeal, which is sometimes what folks will use, or certain language to get you to comply or to give out your personal information or to give your money. Never feel obligated to do something where you feel pressured. You shouldn't feel pressured. And if you are being pressured to send money right away to someone who has called you or who is emailing you, that's a sure sign of a scam. And if a caller starts to threaten you, immediately hang up. And for example, government agencies like the IRS, they will not call you. They will not threaten to arrest you. Social Security won't contact you by phone to confirm your information. Debt collectors cannot threaten you. So if you are concerned about your safety, call the local police immediately. And then, of course, you can also call our office as a follow-up to share more, and we can, of course, be helpful in any way we can. And lastly,
that's great.
I just
will.
Express,
I didn't mean to cut you off, but please make
no
the
problem,
last point,
Mike.
we'll get
I will
right
express
to
one more thing.
Yeah.
It's really important that folks educate their loved ones, pass the word around in their networks, at their social centers, wherever they are. Folks who cannot join this call, spread the word, and we're really delighted to be here and have partners like AARP in this work with us. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I mean, you've given a pretty comprehensive rundown of the kind of work that you're doing and very good advice to our members. And I'm noticing that we've got almost 4,000 members on the call already, and many of you are now starting to press that *3 on your keypad because you want to ask a question of the Attorney General or to make a comment. Let me remind you, we are talking with the Attorney General of Massachusetts, Andrea Joy Campbell. It's just delightful to have her on. Another reminder is that this is an AARP Tele Town Hall, and we do these on occasion, and we're focused in this particular call on how to avoid becoming a victim of fraud. And the simple, sad truth is that there's a lot of fraud happening. There are a lot of folks who are caught up in becoming victims. And suffice to say, the Attorney General's office is a frontline partner in preventing that fraud and protecting people if they've been defrauded. So with that said, we've got a tag team partner called Ted, who is looking at those callers, checking on who might be ready to ask a question. So I'm going to turn it to you, Ted. Who's the first person that has a question for the Attorney General?
Let's go to Alice. She's talking. She wants to know about regulations for gift cards. Hey, Alice.
Hi, Attorney General
Hi, Alice.
Campbell. Thanks so much for talking with us. Are there regulations that you recommend for gift cards and for the peer-to-peer payment apps like Zelle, Venmo, Cash App, since these are the methods often used by scammers to get victims to transfer funds?
That's right. We don't currently have any regulations. First of all, thank you, Alice, for that question governing those. But it is something we're exploring. I mentioned earlier this Elder Justice Unit, which is a unit that we will get off the ground and think about how we can be more proactive in the work. These platforms are different than, say, a banking institution in many ways. Sometimes even how you do customer service with these platforms is via social media. We have real concerns about that and the risk to people's private information and personal information and data. But we actually want to, at the forefront, tell folks, if something is too good to be true, it probably is. If you are feeling pressured to send money, especially immediately through some type of app like that, or to do it quickly, it's probably best to take a moment to pause and to investigate the entity, the organization that is calling, and to verify that it's legitimate before you send any of your money. And we are thinking deeply about how we hold any of these platforms accountable if something does happen. So if you have been scammed, we encourage you to call the office. But most importantly, if it's too good to be true, do not send your money.
Good point. Well, let's remind everybody, too, that if you do want to ask a question or make a comment with the Attorney General, just press *3 on your telephone keypad. You're going to be connected to an AARP staff member or volunteer, and they'll take your name and just a gist of your question, get you in the queue. So please be sure to do that. Now we have a number of other folks. Let's take a few more calls, Ted. So back to you. Who do we have next?
Let's go to Joe, who has a question about the right to repair law. Hey, Joe.
Joe, you've got the... Okay, go to it, Joe.
Yeah, my question is regarding the right to repair law that was passed by the voters about a year and somewhat ago. I leased a new 2022 Subaru last October, and when it was registered in the Commonwealth, after I bought it in Vermont, they disabled several safety features. And I know the Attorney General is litigating with the parts manufacturers. Is the Attorney General going to do anything to remedy these harms to consumers?
Thank you so much for that question. Yes, we are actively working on implementing that law and, frankly, the will of the voters. It was passed over 2 years ago. We have been in court with automakers and pushing for them to get on the right side of this. I will say that court hearing was held up for a little bit under my predecessor, but when I got into office, I immediately had the office start to implement the law and to put out notices to dealerships that they had to comply with the sharing of this information, of course, with independent car dealers to allow folks to be able to go anywhere they wanted to get their car repaired. And sadly, the federal government, and in one particular federal government agency, NHTSA, issued a letter that has stood in the way of that implementation. But I'm confident, based on recent conversations with the federal government, that we will be able to implement this law soon and get the federal government on the right side and protect consumers. And we're pushing, the automakers, I will tell you, are pushing against us very hard and aggressively, but we're working hard to implement this law. So we will continue to keep folks posted publicly as we navigate the federal government, automakers, to get this law implemented so that people can bring their car wherever they want to get it repaired and hopefully get a reasonable and fair price.
Well done. Thank you. Thank you. That's a great question and an important bit of information. from the Attorney General. A reminder, folks, press star 3 if you want to ask a question of Attorney General Andrea Joy Campbell, who has been kind enough to join us, and she's been already she's already gotten some excellent questions. We are going to go to a couple more, but I am reminded, AG, I know that at the beginning of this call, we heard you give some hotline numbers, and people, I'm sure, are thinking as part of this conversation, what do I do if I feel I've been victimized? Who should I call? How can I connect and get protection or get information? So you've given those numbers. Did you mind doing it one more time? And maybe when we wrap this call up, we can do it a third time. But I thought it might be good just for you to repeat those 2 numbers you gave us. And then we'll go to a couple more questions people who are ready to ask them. So what are those numbers?
The first is our consumer hotline. It's 617-727-8400. And the other line is our elder hotline, which is 888-243-5337. And it stands for 888-AG-ELDER. So 2 important lines for folks to be able to call if they're dealing with anything, and especially if they felt like they have been scammed, they have lost something, or anything else. We handle, of course, other matters, so please call either one of those lines.
That's great. Okay, let's get back to those calls. Ted, who do we have next?
Next, we have Jim in Fall River about those calls from fire department and police department agencies or people aligned with them. Let's go to Jim.
Hello. Hello, Attorney General.
Hi, Jim.
How you doing?
Hi, Jim.
Yes, I've been getting quite a few calls from someone that says they represent the fire department or the police department, and they're looking for donations to help elect officials to office to lobby for legislation that will be favorable for them. I know it's not really technically a scam, but it's really not an effective way to give money to an organization. Like you're going to give it to the, say, a breast cancer association, give it directly to them, not through a boiler room scheme, which is what these are.
That's right. That's right, Jim. You said it all. And for us with the scamming piece, we tell folks to say, if you pick up the phone and the person's pleasant enough, you thank them for the call, you hang up, and you do your due diligence. And if after that you find out that there is a legitimate organization there somewhere that is doing incredible work that you want to support, great. If you want to learn more about a particular charity or organization, feel free to also call our office, and we can give you some more information on that, or you can go online to our charity's website. But you're exactly right. Do your homework first and decide what you want to support, what organizations you want to support, and also ask the question, right, where is the money going? It should go directly to the organization.
Yes.
Thank you, Jim, for calling.
Great points. Excellent. Okay, so we've got some wonderful callers, and we've got another one teed up. Ted, who would that be?
Let's go to Vicki in Dorchester. Hey, Vicki.
Good morning. Hi, Attorney General. I'm calling because I am a victim. I've been scammed, I could say like 6-7 times this year on my bank account, and I don't know if how they are getting it, whatever, because I just reported they called me about a scam on last week, and I got a new card last week. Then yesterday I get another call, someone somewhere else is trying to scam. I haven't even used the card, and it's really just taking me through. I don't know what to do about this, and how can I prevent this from keep happening.
Call us, Vicki. And so again, I'm going to give you the consumer line. So 617-727-8400.
617.
727 8400.
Okay.
And when you call, you can say, I was on the AARP call with the AG, and we were talking about scams, and you mentioned that you have been scammed and that you need some assistance, and I asked you to call that number.
Okay, I really appreciate it.
And stay in touch with our office and keep taking care of yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Vicki.
Good advice. Okay, so let's remind everybody we are on an AARP-sponsored Tele Town Hall, and we have a wonderful, informative guest, the Attorney General of the Commonwealth, Andrea Joy Campbell. And I want to thank you again, General, for giving us this time and giving our members a chance to listen in on some of the great tips you've been giving already, and obviously a lot of good questions that are coming in. I just wanted to make a quick point before we go to other callers. At AARP, we do have our own, what we call a fraud watch network. And essentially, we've got two ways to help folks. One is it's an online service. If you sign up, you will be getting updates on new scams that might be coming around, and get tips on how to avoid being a victim of one of these scams. And one thing we do know, and I'm sure the Attorney General would agree, and I'll give you a moment to respond, but the simple truth is these scammers, for the most part, are very sophisticated. They've been tried and true in these techniques. In some cases, they're becoming more and more sophisticated. And it isn't, we're not talking about folks who are as victims, who are vulnerable because they maybe don't know what's going on. Most of our victims are, smart people, good people, trusting people. And, frankly, people of every age are getting caught up in bad links that, get a virus in your computer, or obviously these phone calls and scammers who are using the phone to get you to part with your money, your very important personal information. So I just want to remind you that as the Attorney General has explained the good work that her office is doing, AARP is there for you as well. And you can call us. We have a free helpline at 877-908-3360. So that's our little plug for AARP. But I want to go now back to the Attorney General and just to remind folks about, the advice you've given about, it's that old comment about if it's too good to be true, it isn't true. But what about this whole idea of getting a phone call and staying on the call, answering questions, even if the questions aren't personal yet? Any thoughts about that?
Yes, I think, we say, of course, if it's too good to be true, but I also want people to go with their gut and instinct. If the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, if you folks are beginning to ask you for personal information, or you don't even recognize who the person is that's calling, they say they're from an organization, and so what we're hearing, and you mentioned this through your Fraud Watch Network, which is incredible and folks should sign up, is that, utility company called me and immediately said, if you don't send money, I'm going to turn your gas off. That would never happen. The IRS called me. That would never happen. They wouldn't call to threaten or ask for information. So just taking a step back and saying, who is this that is calling me? Do I know this person? And if you don't, you can take their information and say, what organization are you calling from? Get their due diligence, get the information, hang up, and then do your due diligence and decide if you want it to proceed. And if it gets to a point where it's threatening in nature, immediately hang up and call the police.
Excellent advice. Well, all right. With that said, we do have a number of other folks who have been waiting patiently to ask a question or make a comment to the Attorney General. So let me go back to you, Ted. Who's the next person in line for a call and conversation?
Next, we're going to go to Carol, who's talking about a travel scam. Hey, Carol.
Hi, my name's Carol, and I'm involved with the Vantage travel scam that has, at the moment 1,700 victims. And Vantage Travel is now in bankruptcy court, so we don't ever expect to get our money back. But they are using as a ploy to sell this company the fact that they're going to sell our personal information. And I I would like to know how I could prevent that.
Absolutely, and I haven't heard that part on the personal information, Carol. We have worked actively on these cases and actually have been able to get a lot of restitution back to folks, get them their money back, over $1 million to several of their clients and customers. It's a very unfortunate situation. We are continuing to push for that restitution. So I would love if you could follow up, if you don't mind, Carol, calling the office with respect to your specific case, but also what you might be hearing or seeing from them on the data piece, because we are actively working on this case. And so, again, the number is 617-727-8400. And you can mention that we chatted on this call and that I asked you to follow up on the restitution piece, but also on this data personal information piece. That would be very helpful.
This is Carol's husband. Can I also ask, Vantage, when you're on a trip, charges you on your credit card a tip for the employees. And as I understand it, those employees never gotten it. To me, that sounds like an illegal accounting procedure. They have the money, and they took it and used it someplace else. I think that the president of Vantage and the whole board of directors have a criminal obligation. They're liable criminally. I just don't understand how you can take money like that.
I hear you, Carol's husband, and thank you for chiming in. We can look into that piece, too. It's almost like we're doing this in phases. Number one is seeing how much money we can get back immediately to the folks who have been harmed by this company. Yes, we play an active role on the wage theft piece. That's exactly what you're talking about, folks stealing the wages of employees where they're entitled to certain wages, including certain types of tips. And so we can explore that some more. So we're looking into this actively, and I can say some things and I can't say others as we proceed, but it's at the top of our list, and we're all over it. But if you could follow up, that would be great, specifically on the data piece or whatever they're telling you. That could be helpful to us as well. And I'm sorry that you both have gone through this ordeal. We've heard similar stories. Painful is an understatement, and we're doing our best to hold that company accountable.
Thank you for that information. And that was Lloyd, by the way. Carol's husband's name is Lloyd. We just happen to know that from the screen. There we go, Lloyd. Okay, and a very sad situation indeed. Thank you for your comments on that. Okay, so I'm just going to observe. We've got about 15 minutes to go, and we have a number of folks who are already in queue to ask questions. But I'm going to give one more shout out to folks. Consider if you do want to ask a question and we get to you, we'd love to have you try. Just press *3 on your telephone keypad, and you're going to be talking to an AARP staff member or volunteer, and they'll take a note of your name and just your question, and we'll try to get you in before this call ends at around 11 o'clock. But let's remind everybody, too, that we're speaking with the Massachusetts Attorney General, Andrea Joy Campbell, and it's really been a great call and very informative, to be sure. So, Ted, I want to go back to you because I see a number of folks that are in queue for questions. Who would be next?
Let's go to Corinne, who is in Lynn. Hey, Corinne.
Hi. Oh, thank you so much for taking my call. I have a question for the AG, and so most of it has to regarding to app safety and app protections. So there's so many out there today, and we're getting advertisements that will pop up. We're older, we're at home, we're playing games, word games mostly. And I actually have an aunt who's 91, and she loves to do that while I'm out doing gardening. And she's getting these advertisements that'll pop up saying, play our game, you'll earn money, okay? So she's done it a few times. And, again, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably isn't. I get that. But there are some that say, play for a few hours a day and you'll make $100, $200. She gets to the level that needs to be done. And when it comes time to redeem it, she's put into a queue of like 5,000 ahead of her or something. I'm just wondering, and then she's actually down to like number 99 at this point. Are there any ways or protections, especially when a lot of these apps are coming from China or Korea, that are out there, though? Any protections for the consumer?
So I appreciate the question. It's Corinne, is that right?
Corinne, either. It doesn't matter.
It does. I'm Andrea, and people say Andrea. It does.
Well, I always say pick one and stick with it. That's fine.
Thank you for calling in. I might immediately tell your 91-year-old relative to get off that app.
Okay.
It sounds suspect, to say the least.
Sure.
We do have, through our data privacy division, other parts of the office, where we have looked into some apps or other things around data collection, data sharing, and, of course, any potential scams through a particular app. We're doing a lot right now when it comes to sports betting and these online apps and making sure that folks' data is not utilized, it's not taken, it's also not used against them to pull or create more addictive behavior. We're actively working on those issues right now, which is a major concern. But I would love, if you had the time, if you could follow up specifically on the platforms that you're talking about. We might be able to look into them and to see what's actually going on there, if there's something more that we should address. So if you want to call the office, that would be really helpful as well. So 617-727-8400. Feel free to call
great. And then one more.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Okay, just regarding ageism or ageist. There was one she had brought to my attention the other day. It was a McDonald's, something to do with McDonald's. I'm not even saying, they could have just been a third party in between the mix. And they'd asked her to register her to get coupons. And, of course, there was no credit card information, anything like that, just email and age. And now, when it came to age, the highest it would go, or the least, the longest back in years was 1933. And, of course, she was born in 32. She's a veteran as well. She likes her food hot. She likes everything fresh, and she wants the things to be right when she's putting in her information. Do you understand what I mean? She's, atypical, and a type of personality. And, she's wanted to call somebody right away and complain. And, of course, there was no one to do that. Is that some sort of like ageism when there's something like that not available for a consumer, not the right age, not going back far enough? Like something else. I'm getting into the weeds, I know, but
I think based on what you described, probably not. But that being said, if there is an opportunity to engage a company or at a particular place, whatever the platform is, there usually is contact information to just express, hey, you need to expand the options in your drop-down menus. And in this particular case, there are folks who are utilizing your platform or your company for different things who are older than where you go. And usually some call like that should allow, or push them, I should say, to do just that. So I would try that. And if it's an in-person sort of brick and mortar place and there's an online platform, you can always have a conversation in person. But I would call them and suggest that, because they can do it on their end, but they might not know that they need to.
Good point. Okay, so that was a pretty complicated question, a couple of questions, and but I want to thank you, AG, for spending time answering it, and also to make a point that, again, if there are questions that people have that we're not able to get to in this call, you can always contact the Attorney General's office. And before we end this call, General, I'm going to be sure that I get you back to explaining how to contact your office, et cetera. But we do have just a couple more calls that I think we can get to, Ted. So let's get a couple more. And who would be next?
Let's go to Phil, who's in Hudson. Hey, Phil.
How are you? I'm calling.
What's your question?
Pardon? My problem is I have been called by Web Success Portal, and they were supposed to set a website up for me that was supposed to give me 10% back on products that were sold on the website. And it was supposed to take them 90 days to set this website up, and I was supposed to be able to make $30,000 a month on this website. But this website was supposed to cost me $15,000, and I put $5,000 on my credit card, and they talked me into, this is high pressure now. I talked to 6 different people on different days, and possibly another person, another man. I have the first names of 5 of the people and a last name of one of the persons and a phone number of that person. But it was very high pressure. I'm 75 years old, and they had me sign a thing online, like a contract or something.
Mhm.
And they told me if I give them my bank account number, they would give it to me for the second half for $9,000 instead of $10,000. And like a dummy, they talked me into it, and I did it.
Oh dear. Well, Philip, that's a terrible story. Can I stop you right there, because I know the Attorney General wants to comment about this and to advise
I already went
others
on to
in
shut
this.
bank account down.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead. You.
Phil, I'm sorry.
AG?
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry to hear that, Phil. And it does sound like, they were preying upon you and like you said, applying pressure for you to not only pay something initially, but then also to pay some more and to not deliver what they said they would. But if you could, because yours is so case-specific, like some of the other callers, if you could call the office, that would be great, and even provide some of the documentation that you referenced. We can look into it. Again, 617-727-8400, and we can take it from there and see what we can do. And really sorry to hear that. And it's just a reminder, if it sounds too good to be true, and your gut probably tells you that, it is. And if you are looking for folks, this is also a challenge. You want to hire someone to do some service for you. And I'm going to add a personal anecdote here. I think it's important that you verify the organization, but also see what reviews are out there for them, who else might have used them, which can be helpful too before you embark on hiring someone for some specific work or service. So, Phil, please follow up.
Great advice. Thank you. Okay, we have time for one more call. We do have, frankly, a lot more questions in queue, but out of respect for the Attorney General and, frankly, to be on time, we want to just get one more call in. So, Ted, who is that person?
That's going to be Leslie in Worcester. Hey, Leslie.
Yes. Good morning, Attorney General Campbell. My name is Les Holmes. I'm an AARP volunteer, and I have just a question here. And it's given the ever-increasing number of spoofed phone robocalls, what is the legislature doing to ensure telephone service providers statewide meet the FCC's December 31st, 2023 deadline to implement their shaken call authentication framework? I know it's a lot of words, but essentially it's my question.
Thank you, Les. This is a major issue for the office. We talk about the scams, but the robocalls are a piece of that. They are a major problem. So I can't speak directly to the legislature. I will tell you, when I get off this call, I'm actually going to the State House for our legislative briefing and brunch with folks there to talk about our shared agenda, and I can bring this up with the team. But what we're doing internally is actually taking on one major player in particular, and we've announced this publicly now, that is responsible for thousands of calls. This is a multi-state, I believe. I want to say it's multi-state. We're working with other states as well on this. A company that is blatantly violating laws, including federal laws, and do not call lists, and calling folks through these robocalls, these incessant robocalls. And so we are actively pursuing an investigation and litigation against one of these major players, and more to come on that. It's at the forefront of some of the work we're doing on consumer protection, but especially in the context of our seniors and elders who bear the brunt of these calls.
Thank you, AG. Great point, and good luck dealing with the legislature. We on occasion get over there to lobby on some of the issues that affect our folks 50 plus, and we know you have a great working relationship with them. So have a great experience now. So that in order for you not to be late for this meeting, I want to bring this wonderful call to a close by making two points. First of all, on behalf of AARP Massachusetts, I want to thank the Attorney General, Andrea Joy Campbell, for giving us her time and answering some really important questions and reminding everybody of how important her role is, and frankly, so many things that they are doing to help consumers be protected against fraud. I also want to make a note that, at AARP, we've done this Tele Town Hall specifically on fraud. And with regard to that, AARP is there for you as well. And we do have what we call the Fraud Watch Network, which is, you can get to us, by the way, by just going to aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network. And if you do that, you can sign up and get notices, and periodic updates on the kinds of scams that might be out there and how to protect yourself. In addition, you can call our helpline at 877-908-3360. Now, I want to also mention one other quick thing. We hold what we call our Fraud Talk Tuesdays every month in Massachusetts, and it's the second Tuesday of the month. And so if you're interested, on August 8th, which is our next one, we're going to be talking about scams that target young people, including your own teenage grandchildren, perhaps. So if you want to find out more about that, you just go to our website, aarp.org/MA, and you'll get, of course, a lot of information about what we're doing at AARP in Massachusetts. Well, at this point, I just want to turn it back to the Attorney General for a last comment. Thank you again for your kindness and the information you provided. AG, anything last-minute comment?
Thank you, Mike, and of course, thank you to AARP for the work you're doing. Also, thank you to everyone who called in to listen and also to, of course, ask some questions. And those who I asked to follow up, please do. We're a team that wants to be helpful, and I say team because I don't do this work by myself, but we want to be helpful. And again, that consumer hotline is 617-727-8400. The elder hotline, 888-243-5337. Please stay in touch with us, and thank you to all of you who called in. We respect our elders, but we want to do more than respect you. We want to do our part to protect you. So thank you all so very much, and thank you, Mike, as well.
Thank you. Thank you, and have a great rest of the day, folks, all of you, and thanks for your patience. And you, again, Attorney General, thank you for your time. This has been wonderful.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Yeah.